Hello and welcome to the Front Range Anthroposophical Cafe. I'm the co-host, Jamie York. Today is October 14th, and today's guest presenter is Andrew Linnell. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Robin Howenstein to get us started with the calendar of the soul and the lighting of the candle.
Thank you, dear friends. We're going to see tonight how well the matches work. That's always our comic relief at the frack. Oh my goodness, first time. So we light this special candle as a sign of reverence for what we are about to share tonight and the upward motion of the flame. So let us start tonight with week 27 of the calendar of the soul. I'm in the rhythm with the Carl Koenig Institute and what Richard Steele is doing. I know some groups have moved on to verse 28, but we're going to read verse 27 in line with that program. Penetrating to the depths of my being arouses a prescient longing to find myself in self-perception as a gift of summer sun, living and spreading warmth and autumnal mood as my soul's source of strength. And now Christoph's going to read the verse in German.
In meines Wesens Tiefen dringen erregt ein ahnungsvolles Sehnen, dass ich mich selbst betrachtend finde, als Sommersonnengabe, die als Keim in Herbstesstimmung wärmend lebt, als meiner Seele Kräftetrieb.
Thank you. So tonight we are honored and blessed to welcome Andrew again back to the cafe. He graciously agreed a couple of weeks ago when we had a little bit of a last minute change of scheduling to join us. And he's doing this despite going to the Goetheanum, where he recently was a keynote speaker for their annual science conference, and having brought back a little bit of something that wasn't the most positive thing, but from which he is now on the road and on the mend, to, on the road to healing. Andrew has had a few different things that he's done over his biography. He's been the past president of the Boston branch of the Anthroposophical Society, and he's an active member of the School for Spiritual Science. He's also the co-founder of the Mystech organization, which focuses in on Rudolf Steiner's indications on mechanical occultism. The part that I like the most is that he's the father of three and the author of 2 children's books, 3 art history books, and 5 Mystech study guides. And in addition to his current focus on healing, his days are typically filled with active involvement in multiple study groups, working with and for the natural science section for the Michael School. And he administers a number of anthroposophical Facebook groups. He and his lovely wife still live and enjoy their home in Massachusetts. So tonight, Andrew's going to bless us with the topic, From the Lifeless to the Living, Why John's Gospel is for Our Times. When he takes us through this journey, he wants to bring forward for us the fact that the old world is changing. Technology is a fact of our evolution. So where do we go to receive our spiritual inspirations for the times that we are living in now? Don't need to look very much further than the Gospel of John. He's going to take us through a journey where we will look at the structure and message of that gospel and show us how it was written for our times. So Andrew, many thanks, and I turn it over to you.
There we go. Well, thank you, Robin. And thank you, Jamie, and all for hosting this. And I hope Tom is having a good time on his journeys. So let me set up the screen share here and then get this all set up for all of you. So slideshow from beginning. And so I think you see all of that, except unfortunately, you probably see this. I don't know if I can. Good, okay. So let me also just start with a kind of apology for this unpolished presentation. As you just heard, I was away last week after agreeing to do this, and then I expected this week to be able to work on this presentation, and I have some the last couple of days, but it's not where I'd like it to be. But I'd also say that my whole entry into anthroposophy came through Christology and not through the sciences. In fact, my background in the sciences kept that whole part of anthroposophy to the side for quite a number of years, as I just couldn't accept what Steiner had to say there until I had really built a foundation on anthroposophy out of the Christology. So anyway, let me also start with a statement by Rudolf Steiner about John's gospel. This gospel of John will reveal itself to us when studied in the light of spiritual science as one of the most marvelous documents in possession of the human race. It is not only one of the greatest religious documents, but also one of the greatest literary productions. We need to realize, that's the end of quote, sorry. We need to realize that a mission of anthroposophy is to place this greatness with its depth of meaning before the souls of our times. And I will humbly attempt to guide you on some of this tonight. So the Gospel of John, as most of you probably know, contains 21 chapters. The original script was once one long text. It was later broken into 21 chapters, and whoever did this must have been an initiate because its organization is brilliant, placing the human being, the raising of Lazarus, in the middle chapter, chapter 11. The core event is the change Christ brought for humanity. There is another inner division or rhythm within this text, which I've shown here using 3 circles. And this isn't unique to anthroposophy. You go in many different Christian groups, theologians, many people talk about the 7 signs, the 7 I ams, and the 7 agapes. And there are some pedantics who will say, these words appear more than 7 times, but there are 7 of each that have esoteric significance. Now, we won't have time to look at each of these individually. It would be a remarkable journey to explore each of them, but I mean, look at the sequence. I'll bet you there's a lot to explore just in the sequence, and then taking them as a whole. So are these healings, I could ask, are they for the individual involved, or do they apply to all of humanity? Here again, insufficient time to go into each of the 7 I ams, but these are critical. And I think people underestimate the power that these can have. In the first one, we could ask, what is the bread of life? And I need to point out this word life is the word Zoe in Greek. And you'll see this appearing a lot. So keep this word life in mind. If there's a bread of life, is there a bread of death? Did the 5,000 partake of physical bread or this bread of life? What might that have been? Recall in number 2 that when Moses asked the burning bush what he could tell the people of Israel about who sent him here, the Elohim replied, I am the I am. Say this to the people of Israel. The I am has been sent to you. And number 3, it talks about the light of the world, but in Greek, this word also means cosmos. We could also say the light of the cosmos. Boy, there's a lot I could tell you on this one, but was Christ the Son God? And number 4, door for the sheep. Is this referring to the coming ascension, that is, the separation of sheep and goats? Number 5, the resurrection and the life. Life, again, Zoe. And number 6, the way, the truth, and the life, the third saying with this word Zoe. And in 7, the true vine. The Father prunes even the Christ. So certainly expect to be pruned so that you can bring forth more fruit. English has but one word for love, while in Greek there are 3, and some claim even more. I'll just point to eros, philos, and agape. And how many words for snow do the Eskimos have? I forget the number. So what I mean by eros is the love one feels for another when the other can meet his or her needs. By philos, I mean the love whose basic quality is devotion. It is the love one feels for a guru or another blessed person who gives guidance and meaning to your life. A child's love for their parent would be another example. While philos implies an inequality, agape love is a conscious, unconditional, and spiritually based love. Acts of agape do not look for compensation or reward. Agape love has a quality of being divine. Wherever you see the word love in this list, realize that the Greek word is not eros nor philos, but agape. Thus, if we look at number 5, we'd have to say we need to attain agape love so that we can agape love one another with agape love, not just philos or eros love. Although most of the esoteric, let me word it this way. What I'm trying to show here is that although this is perhaps the most esoteric gospel of the 4, John does give us a time to synchronize our esoteric and exoteric clocks by bringing up when Passover is occurring during his storytelling. Now, a lot can be said about this word logos. John doesn't invent this word. Gnostics have been using this word and others. So what about this logos? Let me read. In the beginning, the Logos was, and the Logos was with God. And at God, the Logos was. This was in the beginning with God. All things through it came into being, and without it became not one thing that has become. In it, life, Zoe, was. And life is the light of men. Life is the light that each of us have. And your light shines in your darkness, but your darkness comprehends it not. Keep in mind throughout this presentation, this relationship of Zoe or life and light. There came a man sent from God, having the name John. He came as a witness so that he might bear witness of the light and all might believe through him. Not was he the light, but that he might witness concerning the light. What does it mean to be an honest witness? Existing was the true light, which enlightens every man that was coming into the world. Into the world it came, and the world through it had come into being, but the world knew it not. To the self, the ego men, it came, but the individual men received it not. However, they who did receive it were given the authority to be children of God, for they who trust in his name are not born of the blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Logos flesh became and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, a glory as of an only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and proclaimed, "This is he of whom I said, the one who will come after me has precedence over me, because before I became, he was. For from his fullness have we all received grace upon grace. For the law through Moses was given, grace and truth come through Jesus Christ." Realize here the utmost respect for human freedom. Hitherto, no one has ever seen God, the only begotten, being in the bosom of the Father. He has made known. Steiner recommends, and I use it as my morning meditation. And I think it is very fit for our times to use this as one's morning meditation. This gospel has no nativity story. After its prologue, the testimony of the author begins with chapter 1, verse 19. Here, John the Baptist speaks of his role leading up to the baptism of Jesus that begins in verse 29. We find that the Spirit that descends and remains upon Jesus is the Spirit of Christ. Thus, this describes the birth of Christ. Through Rudolf Steiner's lecture cycle, The Temple Legend, we know that in a previous life, Lazarus was Hiram Abiff, the builder of Solomon's temple. In an intense spiritual experience, Hiram met Cain in Tubal Cain. In this spiritual experience, Hiram was told that he would have a lineage in the future. Steiner points out that for this lineage, there will first need to be the bringing together of the Cain and Abel soul jesters into harmony again by humans. A few days later, Hiram was killed by 3 apprentices that Hiram had found not yet worthy for promotion. Three beasts. So now we have Lazarus, the former Hiram, here in the central chapter of John. As I read from chapter 11, using the King James Version this time, bear in mind that what is described here is the ancient initiation, a process of 3.5 days. Because it was done publicly and not in the confines of a mystery center, there was great alarm among the leaders. Listen carefully to what the chief priest had to say at the end of this. Chapter 11. Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus, of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was now sick. Therefore his sister sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 more days in the same place where he was. Then after that, saith he to his disciples, okay, let's go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. These things he said. And after that he saith unto them, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go, that I may awake him out of sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest in sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. So obviously Thomas is waking up to what this is about. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it to thee. Jesus saith unto her, thy brother shall rise again. Martha saith unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? She saith unto him, yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. And when she had said so, she went her way and called Mary, her sister, secretly, saying, the Master is come and calleth for thee. As soon as she heard that, she rose quickly and came unto him. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was at that place where Martha met him. The Jews then, which were with her in the house and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily, went out and followed her, saying, she goeth unto the grave to weep there. Then Mary was come where Jesus was, and saw him, and fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, where have ye laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. Then said the Jews, behold, how he loved him. And some of them said, could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused even this man should not have died? Jesus, therefore, again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Jesus cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. And so you know all of this, but I wanted to go on to the Pharisees heard about this and called a council. One of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation. And not for that nation only, but that he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. The story of Lazarus gives us a new perspective on death. Steiner carries this further, and I highly recommend reading the Gospel of St. John in relation to the other Gospels, especially this lecture 13, entitled Death and the Father. And in this one, Steiner links the name of the Father Spirit with the name of death. Now, Steiner also calls Ahriman the Lord of Death. So this brings up some quite challenging thoughts for us. Steiner claimed that the disciples came to know that Christ would go to meet death, to wed death. For Christ had told them, I came forth from death. This is key. I came forth from death in its true form, the life Father. Now new meaning arises from these words. Quote, I am come into this world, now I leave the world and go to the Father, end quote. Death, therefore, when contemplated in its true form, is the Father. And Christ came into this world because a false reflection of this Father had arisen in this aspect of death. Christ came to create the true form, a true image of the living Father God. The Son is the issue of the Father, and his mission was to reveal the true form of the Father. The Father sent his Son into the world that the true nature of the Father be made manifest, life eternal, veiled behind temporal death. The disciple who has already gone through a death-like experience, as done in the ancient mysteries, was Lazarus, who now as John is the one the Lord loved, and that's agape loved. It is John who lays his head on the chest of the Lord and can listen to his heart. There is something special about the relationship John has with Christ that differs from the other disciples, something that can be said to be higher and deeper. Some incorrectly conclude that images of John were actually Mary Magdalene. Of all the disciples, only John is able to witness the crucifixion. John it is who takes on Jesus's mother as his own. Mary is the first to experience the risen Christ. It is John and Peter who run to the grave after hearing Mary's story, with John arriving first, but lacking Peter's strength of will to enter the tomb at first. It is John and Peter who are mentioned during the final experience with the resurrected Christ at the Sea of Tiberias. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. John and Peter and Paul are the key individuals to the spread of Christianity in the West. Each has a different role in unfolding Christianity. Chapter 21 describes the third and last meeting the disciples have with the resurrected Christ. It takes place on the shores of the Sea of Tiberias. It is early morning, and the disciples have been fishing during the night. During the night, Christ, unrecognized, stands on the shore and asks the disciples about their catch. They confess they have not caught any fish. Christ suggests they try the right side of the boat. As a result, the number of fish is so great that they are unable to haul in the net. The beloved disciple John now recognizes the person at the shore and proclaims, "It is the Lord." Peter, aware of his nakedness, wraps himself and leaps from the boat into the water in order to quickly come to the Lord. Obviously, he was not able to walk on this water. John, on the other hand, comes with the other disciples in the boat, dragging the net full of 153 fish. The story raises many questions, such as, what is the meaning of fishing at night? What are they fishing for? What is meant by the watery element into which Peter leapt, as opposed to the shore where the risen Christ stands? What is the significance of the nakedness of Peter? What is the significance of 153 fish? The gospel writers do not waste words. All details are significant. Again, much to pursue another time. The story contrasts Peter and John. It is John who can recognize the resurrected body of Christ. To those who cannot see beyond the physical senses, the body of the resurrected Christ is not recognizable. All the disciples could see someone on the shore, but only John could recognize him. Why only John? Peter expresses impulsiveness out of his devotional love for Christ. He is ashamed of his inadequacies, evident by covering himself up before leaping into the watery element. John's knowing, or his conscious love, differs from Peter's impulsive, passionate love. A conversation between Peter and Christ begins immediately following Judas's departure into the night after this Last Supper. Peter asks, "Lord, why cannot I follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thy sake." To which Christ replies, "Wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice." Following the Last Supper, the disciples, minus Judas, go for a walk in the garden. Here in the garden, Judas, with a group of soldiers, finds them. Judas reveals to the soldiers who is Christ through a kiss. Peter uses his sword to cut off the ear of a soldier. Christ is taken away, and the disciples scatter. Peter attempts to follow the soldiers 3 times during that night. People see Peter and accuse him of being one of Christ's group. Fearing for his life, Peter denies this each time. Just as he completes his 3rd denial, the cock crows. Immediately, Peter recalls Christ's words. Let's return to that dinner happening on the shore of Lake Tiberias, where Peter will be offered karmic redemption. We have learned that in the physical, Peter was the strongest of the disciples. He was thus called the Rock, and upon him the early church was built. All of the disciples of this era could only achieve philos love, with the exception of John. This would mean that Christianity would have a first phase built upon devotion and the physical realm. A second phase of Christianity would have to wait. Let's hear how this foreshadowed in chapter 21 while redeeming Peter's 3 denials. So when they had dined, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest, and he's using the word agape, lovest thou me more than these? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love, using the word philos, I love thee. He saith unto him, feed my sheep. He saith to him again as the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest, agape, thou me? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love, philos, thee. He saith unto him, feed my sheep. He saith unto him a third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest, now he says, philos, lovest, philos, thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest already, thou knowest that I love, philos, thee. Jesus saith unto him, feed my sheep. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself and walkest whither thou wouldst. Excuse me a minute. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee and carry thee whither thou wouldst not. This he spake, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, follow me. Then Peter, turning about, seeth the disciple whom Jesus loved following. Peter saith to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do? Jesus saith unto him, if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? Follow thou me. And a saying goes about, and this kind of stuff about John will not die, but that's not what he's saying. So to conclude, we live in polarizing times. Love one another as I have loved you. Our world is falling apart. In a way, it's every man for himself. Love one another as I have loved you. We think the metaverse will rob us of our humanity. Love one another as I have loved you. Agape is to the soul what the sun is to outer life. I should add that because one human, John, has accomplished this, now any human is able to reach this stage of development. Human evolution has proceeded to our times when he has come again. And here I close my presentation. So Robin, do you want to come on? I guess I should, I'll keep the share up. Do you want to have me, I'll read these questions?
I could, yeah, it would be good if you read the questions for starters, and then what I can do also, I will also put it on the screen to remind people partway through the breakout rooms. But why don't you go ahead and read the questions for me?
Is the event of Christ in the Etheric also the time when Johannine Christianity should come to the fore? That's question one. Question two, discuss how an understanding of Peter and John can help us in grasping agape love. If, number three, excuse me, if Rudolf Steiner was John the Baptist for the etheric Christ, who is the Lazarus of this etheric Christ event? Lastly, a fourth question for discussion, and pick any of these, I don't think you can do all of them. What does Johannine Christianity have to do with our technological age? Furthering that, does it lead us to needed counterbalances for our times? Is agape a counterbalance for our times? So, Jamie, back to you to.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. We will now go into our breakout rooms. I will go ahead and display that and share the screen so you can see it while in your breakout room as well. But for starters, please do go and accept your invitation to go into the breakout rooms in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a fruitful conversation in your breakout rooms. Of course, this is the time in the big meeting here where we invite people to share something, perhaps a gem that was stated in the breakout rooms, or a new thought, or perhaps even a question for Andrew. So you can voice yourself by raising your virtual hand, click on reactions, and then raise hand, and then I can allow you to unmute yourself. So please do raise your hand if you have something to contribute. Go ahead, Sandra.
I have a question, Andrew. It's a very technical, probably easy to answer question. I was looking at your slides. I believe it was number 18. There was a man being apparently crucified, and it wasn't Christ. And I don't know who it was. Can you refer to slide 18 and tell me who that was, who had the nails through his hands and feet and was upside down on a cross? I'm pretty sure it was slide number 18.
You're muted, Andrew.
I'm now unmuted. Okay, that was Peter being crucified upside down.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, but I'd never seen that that image before. That was quite something.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying in a way.
Well, so I'm wondering, question number 3, if Rudolf Steiner was the John the Baptist for the etheric Christ, who is the Lazarus of this etheric Christ event? We posed that question in our group, but somehow we skirted it. We never really got around to trying to answer it. And I have no idea if you yourself, Andrew, have a possible answer, or if it's truly an open-ended question. I'm mystified by that one.
Yeah, I was too. I was quite mystified when this question popped up. So, this is one of those lean on everybody else and hope they come up with a good one. But I would say, as we talked in our group about it, that Lazarus, being formerly Hiram Abiff, would naturally, it would mean to me that such a person in their soul can bring together in a harmonious way Abel and Cain. And so such a person, boy, my mind is really hard to get it to work right now. But such a person is also, I'll use the word that evangelicals use today, born again, but in the sense that I phrased it here, or that he does to Nicodemus, that you have given birth through your own soul to your Son of Man. And that is, to me, what this lineage promise to Hiram is about, is not one that's born out of the flesh or the will of a human, but I don't know. That's just my own kind of thinking on who would be the Lazarus for this. But, you know, it'd have to be somebody that's initiated. I don't know, somebody who's joining right now maybe has some further thoughts, like Martha or Rosemary. Do you want to, Jamie, pick on any of them?
Martha, go ahead.
Did you say Martha?
Yes.
Okay. I do not have a Goethean conversation connective comment on that last comment. I have another question,
Okay.
contemplation about whether agape love existed in humanity before John. I think I heard it was that because John experienced agape love with Christ, then humanity afterward can also strive for that. I'm not clear that I really understand what agape love is. I have an idea, but I'd love to hear any comments on that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, Martha, I would agree with you that until Christ came into the world and until Lazarus had been so initiated, we could not really speak about agape love before that. Some may disagree with me, that's fine, but that's how I feel as well. And a word in sort of more modern, this past century or two, often the word charity is used. I don't particularly like that, but, and there is a Greek word, charitas. But I tried to give some examples of what helps us go towards understanding what this agape is. And it would have to be a love that is really firmly based in each person's soul. So it's a spiritual coming together, expression of this love. The words unconditional come to mind, but I think that's, a word that is thrown around a lot today, and people think that they're doing unconditional love, but it's really not. It's still, in most cases, still eros love, and you don't get your reward back for loving that person unconditionally. You're out of there.
So you commented that eros love was a love of what we can get from someone, how our needs
it's
to
not
be.
so much what you can get, but you expect something.
Expect something. Yeah. And therein is the downfall of a lot of marriages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then the philos is loving someone who's wiser and a teacher, a guru that you can learn from, that you can receive from. And perhaps the agape love is that love that's described, that to have compassion for everyone, that it's what you can give, not what you can get.
Oh, that's very true. I was trying to make that point. So thank you for emphasizing that, Martha. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm going to call on Rosemary now.
I wanted to say something really obvious that Andrew didn't emphasize enough in my view, is that Gospel of John was written by Lazarus John. So he was the first Christian initiate, and he wrote that gospel. And so That's why the John Gospel is so appropriate for today, is because now more people are ready and able to become initiates. And Christian Rosenkreuz, the Lazarus being, has constantly been incarnated among human beings. So he has also been on the ground, bringing this initiation power forward. So who is the counterpart of our Rudolf Steiner? We were talking about that picture. I think it was Countess Kaiserlink who saw Rudolf Steiner in a red cloak and Christian Rosenkreuz in a blue cloak with Christ in the middle. So I'm feeling like the Lazarus John initiate is with us big time now.
Yeah.
And thank you, Andrew, for coming and bringing all this together. And we have such a big turnout tonight. So I think it's really going to be inspiring for Anthroposophia.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. And I'm with you with CRC. I'm so glad your group talked about that and you brought it to everyone's attention. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very, very insightful. And maybe one of I think agape love, trying to define it, is problematic. But maybe we can get an indication from Christ himself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your being. It's complete, it's total. And it's a very all-encompassing love, physical, spiritual, emotional, etc. It's in a certain sense, it's almost an epiphany of a love. It's an amazing concept. And I'm wondering, Andrew, if you know that that's clearly a Greek term. Was there anything in Aramaic that is similar to that? Or was that John adopting a Greek understanding to the Christ's declaration of love?
Wonderful question, Neil, but that's several steps beyond my capacities right now. Aramaic was not something in my lifetime I've had any studies of. So can I turn that question around? Do you have any help for anybody on that, or any thoughts? You're on mute, Neil.
I'm not sure. I don't know, but I think that it's predominantly a Greek term, concept, and understanding, and we have to find someone who has more understanding than we do. But I think it's important to understand the language that Christ spoke in and the concepts connected with that. Mm-hmm. But clearly, there's a very big. English is too generic. We use love for everything. And it's I love my bicycle. Like, what? It doesn't make sense. But you did a very good job, and I really appreciate it. And it was very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom, I guess you're up next. And that's Dick. Did you drop your hand? Okay. Tom? Yeah.
I just want to respond. That quote, loving God with your whole heart, your whole faith, that's right from the Old Testament. And it's called, within Judaism, it's called the Shema. So Christ, as he did, he repeated things from the Old Testament at the moment he was going to fulfill those things that were prophesied.
Okay. Curious how some of the other groups that, if anybody wants to report from them, I'd love to hear what. Go ahead, Kate. Kate, you're on mute.
Fine, okay. Yeah, I've got it. I don't have anything or much really. I have just a little thought to add to what has been said. As to my understanding of agape, it's not complete. It's not exactly a definition in that it encapsulates the meaning. But I think of it because if you live with and the Lord's Prayer in the way that Steiner recited it every evening, and as you live with it and you understand that and we had this discussion on Frontline Cafe about Abu, the birther, the word for father is Abun, and that there's a breath that comes through that in pronouncing it, and that's the giving, in the being of God Himself, and that God cannot be grasped easily, by anyone outside of Christ. Christ has made Him known, but it's this giving, that the kind of love that agape is love that just doesn't stop, and that it keeps flowing to the point where creation occurs in the giving, in the being, in the moment, very swiftly. And that we understand that speech is a deed of creation, so that this is the beginning. As we enter into this, I think that, for those of us born today with this kind of consciousness, just know that we're on the very smallest first step, of the ladder, some of us. And
you always have great gems to offer.
Well, I don't know about that, but that thank you, Andrew. But anyhow, it's just an experience. But the other thing that I did want to say, and I had my hand up, was that my group had trouble sticking with this conversation because we couldn't remember all of the questions and didn't get them written down and couldn't see them. So I don't know if that's a technical problem, but I'm just going to report that that's what happened.
Yeah, I did put the questions up towards the beginning, and then I meant to do it again later, and then I forgot. I apologize.
Yeah, well, it was hard for us, but we did some basic work, but after that we could have gone on, but we couldn't. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I think you can hear me, but I'll put myself up here. There. Thank you, Andrew. I think we were struggling with the questions, but one thing that came up was someone's direct experience of reading from John the Gospel over the phone to their dying grandmother, I think it was. And it was just a real experience, a really heartfelt experience. After they listened to the reading, they became much more calm, and it died shortly thereafter. So all that searching intellectually, it was difficult, but it was a breakthrough for me. But what came to mind is the verse, in purest love for all that is, outpours the Godhood of my soul. In purest love for all that is. Oh, sorry, back to the other one. Yes, in purest love for all that is, outpours the Godhood of my soul. I'm saying it backwards. Let me try it one more time. The first line, in purest light for all that is, shimmers the Godhead of the world. In purest love for all that is, outpours the Godhood of my soul. That seems Father, and then, agape, me.
Do you use that as a meditation, Patricia?
I do.
Could you, it would be helpful if you know how to use chat, if you could, because it's very short, if you could type it into the chat for all of us.
It's from, someone help me with the book, Lessons, Main Lessons? No, that's not it. I'll put it in there. That's, the first two lines, but then there's, I rest within the Godhead of my soul, and there I shall find
Right.
myself. Yeah, so, all right, I will put it in.
Thank you for sharing that.
I'm going to take one more comment, and I know we've got a lot of people who would like to also speak, and I encourage you to do so during the informal part after we turn the recording off. But I'm going to invite Tom and then Andrew to have some closing comments, given that we're at the end of our time.
Tom.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, Andrew.
Tom.
I hear you came back. Is it true you came back from Europe with COVID?
Yeah, that's right.
So did I 7 days ago. Oh my God. Anyway, I was in room 15 with Robert McDermott and 5 other illustrious guests.
Oh, wow.
And fortunately, one of our one of the people in the room actually took a screenshot of your questions and shared it with us so that we could kind of internalize them. And I focused on question 4. What does Johannine Christianity have to do with our technological age? And I know you're very you're very immersed in Mystech and everything. And what struck me as an answer, as one answer to that question, was how Johannine Christianity and the technological age, and I'm sure you would be very versed in being able to answer this, relate to each other in a polarity, in the sense that if Johannine Christianity has to do with the living word, living thinking, at the other end of the spectrum, the technological age is driving us towards abstract thought, the frozen word, the non-mobile concept, right? And so I was just wondering how you see that, how you sit with that as a potential perspective answer to your question.
Yeah, well, I that's right on, Tom. I find that Johannine Christianity and this development of agape love is the key counterbalance, so that as we enter farther and farther into the technological age, we need to develop within ourselves our own Johannine Christianity. And for me, this is the same thing when he says about, as technology, it's like a slide. We're sliding into the abyss, so to speak, or into sub-nature, and that's going to happen naturally. What we have to do out of our own effort is rise into supernature at an equal amount for our own individual health, but also for the health of society. So yeah, I agree, Tom. So Jamie, back to you, I guess.
Well, it's actually back to you, and that is, any closing thoughts for a minute or so before we invite Robin to put an end to the meeting. Well, that's not the way to say it, but have a nice closing. Thank you.
Yeah, I just kind of did. Tom led me right into what I wanted to say for the closing. Is that this Johannine Christianity is the counterbalance for the times that we're in, the principal one. There's lots of other counterbalances to develop and things that we can do. Getting outside for an hour walk every day, just as little sort of things, but there's many others. What to do with the Wi-Fi and these sort of things. So lots of counterbalances, but the key to all of this is the Johannine Christianity, as far as I can tell. So that's what I was hoping to kind of bring underneath in all that I brought. Been wonderful to share with. So thank you, Jamie, and all for the hosting the Front Range Anthroposophical Cafe. It's a wonderful gesture. So Robin,
What an amazing, amazing evening tonight. So I wanted to quote something out of Rudolf Steiner's The Gospel, the lectures from the Gospel of St. John in his second lecture. The first words of the Gospel of St. John touch, in fact, upon the deepest mysteries of the world. This can be seen when we allow the truths of spiritual science, which lie at their foundation, to pass before our souls. And we must dip deeply into spiritual knowledge if these first words of this gospel are to appear to us in the right light. Andrew, thank you so much for bringing tonight what you did. We had an amazing breakout room, and I thought I would share one nugget that our dear friend Brian happened to bring to light, which ties to how we see things in the right light. You mentioned that there's no accident as to what comes in the gospel when we talk about how many fish, how many loaves of bread, and all of that. Well, dear Brian brought and reminded us that the Gospel of John talks about the nature of the higher I. That's its focus. We talked about Christ in the 21st century. We talked about the fact that there are 21 chapters to the Gospel of St. John, that we reach our higher I at the age of 21. There's something going on with this number 21. And how do we take that also and see it in the right light as we bring it into our hearts? And with that, I would love to read a short evening meditation from our dear Dr. Steiner. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and a God was the Word. And the Word, may it dwell in thy heart, in the heart of thy being, in thine eye. And with that, Andrew, thank you so much. And it is time now to take our candle that has been with us, guiding us with the smoke and the fire and all the elementals that made this evening possible.